Hello, and welcome to the Refs Need Love To podcast, a show that gives you a real, raw, and behind-the-scenes view of one of the hardest jobs on the pitch, the referee. I'm your host, David Gerson, a grassroots referee with 7 years of experience and over 1,000 matches under my belt. You can find me at refsneedlove2.com and on TikTok. This week, we're going to be discussing the use of comms on a soccer pitch, the positive and negatives. And we're also going to be discussing mentoring new referees on the pitch. I hope you enjoy. So this past week, I had the pleasure of using comms, or what's known as electronic communication headsets, on the pitch. Not just once, but twice. The first was in a high school playoff game, and the second was in a grassroots ECNL match. Now, I say that because U.S. youth soccer does not condone the use of electronic communications on the pitch. High school, not a problem. My adult league games would not be a problem, and certainly professional games, not a problem. But at U.S. soccer has a specific edict that says you shouldn't use electronic communications on the pitch. But let me tell you, I am glad we had them. And you will notice that every single professional match you ever watch, they are all wearing electronic communications. But why would you recommend it for professionals and not youth referees? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because the professionals certainly see value in it. To have not just one set of eyes, but 4 set of eyes, plus the eyes up in the VAR booth to participate and help the referee the game and manage the game and see things all over the pitch are a wonderful, huge advantage over just being a single referee. So let's talk through what are the pros, and yes, there are some cons to using electronic communications. First and foremost, it's kind of rare. So they're very expensive. So before we get into even the pros, I'm not saying everyone should go out and buy a set of comms. I think the cheapest set you could probably get that will do the job out there is around $400, and $400 is a very significant investment for anyone. And then the actual proper comms, like the ones that have a push to talk button for fourth official, can make the sound of the whistle quieter so you don't blow out your assistant referee's ears, are in the thousands of dollars. I mean, I'm talking $2,000 easy if you really want the pro level communication devices. So not saying everyone should go out and get them, but I'm just going to talk through the benefits of having them. If you've never worked a game with comms, you're missing out. Because so the pros, you're connected to your crew in a way that hand signals can never provide. Listen, I am all about the eye contact, whether I'm in the center or I'm an assistant. I'm really trying to make sure that I try and stay, quote unquote, connected to the center referee and vice versa. But there's nothing like literally being in someone's ear throughout the entire match. I mean, you are engaged in every single play, even if it's all the way on the other side of the field, in the other corner of the field from where you might be standing as an assistant. You're engaged in every single play because you do see things. You do see things. Even if there's a corner kick that might be 50 yards away from you, and traditionally the referee might not turn back and ever look at you, whatnot, you see things. You see things, for balls in and out of bounds. You see things on potential fouls. You hear things from spectators. You hear things from coaches. You hear things from players. And so you're constantly able to share that information as a crew and discuss it as a crew. And sometimes there's just nuances, little things that happen. You just can't communicate that with a flag alone or eye contact. So having the actual ability to communicate, with voice is so powerful. And when you're doing that and you're engaged in every single play, let me tell you, the games fly by. I mean, fly by. A 40-minute, half feels literally like 15 minutes when you're constantly talking and you're communicating. And I'm not saying you're just talking about anything, although every now and then you might, have a humorous anecdote. But the engagement in every play makes the games fly by. And that's so much fun. I mean, if you're going to be out there for 2 hours, why should it feel like 4 hours? If it feels like 20 minutes, that's awesome. The next thing I would just want to say again is having crew members' eyes on every play is really important. And I'll give you just one scenario. This was late in the match, and it wasn't a critical key match decision, but I was the AR2, and let's say where I'm about 20 yards inside of the halfway line. So not yet at the penalty area, whatever. But there's a play all the way on the other side of the field, but the play actually happens directly across from me. So I have a view to that play that the center official doesn't have, and even the assistant referee on the other side, who was actually might have been technically closer to the play, didn't have either. And I saw two players come together, and the attacking player, we say, was challenging for ball and literally hit the defending player with a shoulder to the face. Now, it didn't look like much to the center referee, just like two players coming together, 50-50. But what I saw is she literally kind of bent down and raised up her shoulder and caught the girl in the face. I mean, it wasn't awful. There's no yellow card or red card situation. But, you could see the other coach and the bench responding to it. And the center ref, just called it. I think it was a 50-50 and a play on. I'm like, no. She caught her in the face with the shoulder, caught her in the face, a foul. I think I said, foul, caught her in the face with the shoulder. And he's like, oh, thanks, good. So we were able to make a call that, without those comms, it just would have been play on, and you get coaches upset, you get players upset. Like, how did the ref not see that? Listen, the ref only has one set of eyes. They can only see one thing from where they are at that moment of time on the pitch. There were a couple other players in between him and the foul that happened. It just is what it is. But by having me in his ear with those comms, I was able to avert a situation that could have led a wonderful, great, enjoyable match to kind of spiral out of control. So that is what's so wonderful about having those comms, is you can participate, even when you're all the way on the other side of the pitch. One of the things that I will say is, so in these two games that I had comps, 3 games actually, because we worked in my ECNL game, we worked a game back-to-back, so I got to use the comms as an assistant referee, and then I got to use the comms as a center. Oh my gosh, so much joy. But the two centers that I was working with, when they were leading and I was an assistant, were extremely experienced. I mean, these gentlemen are probably in their late 50s, if not 60 years old. They have both been reffing for 20, 30 years each. I have immense respect for them. But man, when you actually get to hear an experienced and a really good experienced referee, okay, I'm not just talking to someone who's been doing it for a long time, but doing it very high levels, when they are managing a match, the way they communicate with the players, the words that they use, with players. Hey guys, find the ball. Be smart. Hey guys, I saw that. Whatever it might be. Just the types of communication that they're using with the players, the way they diffuse situations with the players, the communication, the way they're describing fouls and what happened out there, and how they're allowing advantage to happen on the pitch, is so important. I think game management in particular, and the words that you use with players, is probably one of the most important things and critical things to being perceived as a good, credible referee, and it's something that only comes with time. It's not something they teach you in the recertification courses. They don't do this when you're getting set up as a new referee. People really don't do this in pregame. You actually just have to hear it. And the only way you're actually going to hear it is actually if you hear the electronic communications. That's it. And these days, sometimes when you're watching, there's some shows on Amazon and a few other sources where they've done documentaries on referees. And when you listen to the communication, it is so powerful. Hearing how they talk to players, how they diffuse these extremely, how shall I say, fiery, professional players who make millions upon millions of dollars, these huge personalities, and how they bring them back down to earth is so powerful. Huge. A couple of the things on the pros. Again, one thing, as you know, when you're a center referee and there's a play switching up the pitch, you're having to check over at your assistant referee to see if, they're onside or offside. Or if there's an offside offense, I should say. And so that takes your eyes off the play. And even if it's just for a moment or so, it's really nice to be able to be, as that play is happening, for someone to be saying, off, or waiting. Maybe they're waiting to see who plays the ball. But just having that, knowing what's going to happen, or, on and on, even before they receive it, just so you're not having to worry about offside, and you can just focus on the play itself is so wonderful. So, love that. Huge fan of comms, and I wish it was something more common or just at least supported by U.S. soccer. That would be cool. Now for the cons of comms. It takes getting used to. I mean, there's no doubt. If it's your first time using comms, it's going to be disorienting. Okay? I'll just say that. First off, the language that you're using. So on can sound a lot like off, because it starts with an O. When you're thinking to yourself as an assistant referee, I'm just using a hand signal, okay, when I'm by myself on the touch line. So I'm just putting up my arm, in 45-degree angle or for offside, straight up. And now I'm having to say blue, 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 if it is blue kick, or red, 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 or off, 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 or good, 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 if it's onside, because on sounds so close, foul, 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 and these sort of things. It takes getting used to, and so it's a learning curve. So it may be a little bit messy, the first time you're using comms. Additionally, you can forget to make a proper hand signal. So if there's a substitution, okay, say white sub, next opportunity, white sub, okay, and then when the sub happens, referee sees it and calls. Well, you still need to make sure that you're making hand signals to show, is there a substitution? What direction is the ball going out? Because that flag signal and your mechanics in the center is the way that coaches, players, and spectators understand what's going to be called. They're looking at you as the referee, and they're not on the comms with you. The third thing, and I mentioned this earlier, comms can be freaking expensive. So let's just call it like it is. It is not something that everyone can afford. Actually, a very small people or very few referees will take the time and make that kind of investment to get comms. You're certainly not going to do it as a youth referee. Maybe if you're really trying to go pro, but that's a very small percentage of refs. I mean, we're talking 1 in 1,000 here. And then as an adult referee, I mean, I got 3 kids I got to put through college in the next couple of years. My wife would kind of freak out on me if I said, hey, I'm going to spend $2,000 on a set of comms. She's like, no, you're not. So it's definitely really expensive. And I would say, maybe we wouldn't need to have comms if there were more mentors and assessors at grassroots games, because that is what's needed. The comms is a developmental tool. It's a way to connect you to the action. But I have not seen a single mentor at the fields all spring long, all through the fall as a grassroots ref. The only time I had any mentoring in the last year or so is when I did an ECNL tournament here in Atlanta, and ECNL did bring some mentors and assessors there. And I'll tell you, the amount of mentoring and assessing I had was, I don't know, all of about 2 minutes. I also got like 2 minutes of feedback when I worked a tournament down at Disney for National League. But for the day-to-day grassroots referee, there's just nothing there. Nothing. And so having, some moments where I get to use comms with senior officials is so wonderful and beneficial. The pros certainly outweigh the comms. Now, U.S. Soccer, I think they need to update their position on comms. Yes, you can talk about and make sure everyone understands that there are some negatives to using comms, but specifically saying you can't use them is just way too heavy-handed, and I think they need to change their position. Now, Saturday was a fun day. I had 4 games this past Saturday, and those first 2 games, I was at one set of fields using the comms, and then I go across town, 35 minutes away, rush to my next set of games, and I had 2 matches at a different set of fields. There was a tournament going on. And at this field, I show up, and my 2 refs are there, and they're 14 and 15 years old, respectively. And I asked them, how long have you been reffing? And one of them's like, I started this fall. I was like, okay, just say you're just under a year. How about you? Johnny, how long you've been reffing? We introduced ourselves. And he's like, today's my first day. And I'm like, whoa, so exciting. So I have a 14-year-old young man who is a first game. So I had a young woman and a young man out there. And again, I am just so blown away when I see young people make this choice to come out there. And this was not, your local rec league games, U10 and U12. These were I don't want to put, this certainly wasn't ECNL or MLS Next, but they were, it was competitive academy games. This was teams had traveled from, 3 or 4 states around to come play in this competition. So this is, probably a little bit of an intimidating place for someone to have their first game, or even someone who's only been reffing for, a few months or so. So making that decision to become a referee, that takes courage, but then making that decision or putting yourself out there to be assigned to these types of games, that's courage, or maybe just a lack of knowledge and their assessors just needing bodies and throwing people out there. But I'm always thrilled when I have the opportunity to work with young officials. I am not a certified mentor, but I definitely have a teacher's heart, and I love working and developing youth referees. Now, when I do my pregame for youth referees, it's very different to the type of crews I was working with earlier in the day. So with a youth referee, it's all about fundamentals, man. Look professional. Good, solid mechanics. When you throw that, arm mechanic up for the ball going out and you're pointing direction, it's not down by, just a little thing out straight to your side. It's that 45-degree angle. Snap it up, feet together, get, a solid position when you do it. Your goal kicks, your corner kicks, your offside calls. Good, solid mechanics. That's what I'm looking for. Be confident in your calls. Good, solid mechanics. Work hard to be in the right position. If you are working hard out there and you've got good mechanics, people aren't going to think it's your first day. They're going to think you're doing this for years. For years. And mind you, these kids are the same age as the people out on the pitch. So you really got to work hard to look like a pro out there at the same age. If you're confident and you have good, solid mechanics, it's going to look like that. The other thing I just say, eye contact. Let's stay together, guys. I never want to be crossed up on calls. So when you're making a call for, a throw-in direction, let's make eye contact. Give me a little, signal as to where you're going, a little indication. Put your flag in that hand to the side, and we'll go up together. If I see something else, I will out loud say, deflection, and I will make a call. But otherwise, I'm going with you every single time, And I always tell them, listen, I'm going to back you up. If you see a foul, call a foul. I'm with you every single time. If you've got the offside, I'm with you every single time. The only time I might overrule a situation is, like, let's say a defender deliberately played a ball, and you'll hear me yell out, defender, and I'll make sure I make that very clear. But otherwise, man, I am always got your back. And then the last thing I say to him is, let me tell you, I'm not going to let you get any abuse out there today. If you are hearing anything that is, personal, profane, persistent, abuse, please get my attention and let me know. I promise you, I will take care of it. You have my word. So, that's just like the basics of what I go over with them. I want them to feel confident out there. I'm always giving them a thumbs up when they do a good job. When they come off at halftime, I'm trying to give them positive feedback. If I see something, I'll give them one thing to work on. Hey, in the second half, the only thing I want you to work on is X, Y, and Z. Or just X, I'm sorry, not X, Y, and Z, but just X. I don't want the mind overwhelmed with like 20 different things. I want to keep it really simple for them so they know exactly what they need to do a good job, or at least what the expectation is for what is a good job in that second half. And last but not least, have fun. I'm the kind of ref out there. I want to have fun. I want you to have fun. I want them to enjoy themselves. So it's so great to see new refs out there. And I am so happy when I have the opportunity to work with new refs. Oftentimes the games I'm working, I don't usually get to work with new refs anymore because I'm doing like the MLS Next, or I'm doing ECNL, or I'm doing a higher level academy type games, and I don't get to see the new refs. But I feel bad for them because I know that they're not getting the support that they need at their games. They're not getting feedback. They're not getting true coaching and mentoring. Hopefully there are other refs like me out there who are working with them, but in my experience, I haven't seen it. So, it's a shame. But I love those new refs. I'm so proud of you. Ava and Johnny, if you listen to this podcast, or your parents listen to this podcast, you guys did a great job, and I wish you all the best. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's pod. There is a reason why pro refs use comms. It is extremely beneficial to their performance and the game overall. Grassroots refs should get the same benefit. And when coaching a young ref, there can be no better tool. If you like the show and my content, please consider supporting me by purchasing some merch from the refsneedlove2.com store. The pod website and everything else I do has a cost beyond just my time. Purchases from the store help me cover the cost of doing this. Good luck on the pitch, and I hope your next game is red card free.